Welcome to the Humanist Podcast. I'm your host, Ken Stearns. Join us on a journey where we unravel the intricacies of workplace dynamics. Morning, everybody. I'm your host, Ken Stearns, for the Humanist Podcast. And really, this is, as I mentioned, about exploring kind of that flourishing concept in life and what it's like to be, really at peak humanity. Being good or feeling good in really all the areas of your life. Especially, you've got some spiritual connection, you got your financial stuff kind of in order, you got a good human network that you hang out with, your physical, you're eating, you're taking care of your food and all that good stuff, and just being an optimal human. And I think it's got Dr. Benjamin Ritter, our next guest, on, and it's kind of fun, a little pre-chat. And we share quite a few similar things in background, but also doing some similar things in life, I think, right now. But also very different people, I have a feeling. Benjamin, welcome to the show.
I am so happy to be here to help optimize humanity. I feel like what
Yeah,
a cool
I like this
slogan. Yeah, I want to get t-shirts.
Optimize humanity. I like it. How did we find each other? Did I reach out, or did someone on your team reach out? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, pretty sure someone on my team reached out. They're like, okay, let's go have a conversation about life. Wait a second. He went to New Trier, Ben went to Nellis West. I think they might have been they might have walked on the same sidewalks at some point in their life. They should have a conversation.
Absolutely. I've been to your gymnasium. I was a gymnast in high school. So I've competed in your gymnasium that you were hanging out in. I've been there many times.
It's amazing to think about how there are so many people in your life that maybe you'll have a conversation with and maybe haven't, that have stepped in the same path as you have. Right? Maybe had similar jobs, it's mind-boggling.
We absolutely touched, my DNA was still floating around somewhere where you were at. You came around eventually. One of those universal moments. I met an old friend. I'm here in Vietnam. I've come back to where I lived and worked for some time, and I met an old work colleague on Saturday night. And of course, you meet an old work colleague and you talk about old bosses and life and culture and what it was like back in the day. And we spoke at length about one colleague, his boss. He was our boss, and powerful story, personal story, tragedy and loss, but also happiness at the end. And we're just talking about him. And Sunday morning, I wake up and I had a message from him asking, "How's things?"
Wow.
And
wow. Put it out there. Feeding the universe.
There's no randomness, right? He literally heard us talking about him. There's just no escaping that.
Just so timely, because like what I work with a lot of leaders, high-powered professionals or individuals that just want to create more from their professional life, and they're just on. Like they are highly active, maybe not productive, but they're doing things. A lot of us are doing things, and they're creating, they're making. They might not be innovating, but they're putting energy into the world and they're responding to things that they think need their attention. But often they're not stopping and saying like, well, what do I want to give my attention to? Just like what happened just now with your boss. And I have to stop myself. So I take a step back and say, oh, where do I want, like, what connections do I want to feed with my mental powers? And not that we're superhumans in some way, but there's something very much to say about what I think will become. And what I focus on will be where my energy goes. And if we let other people choose that, then we're not going to be able to flourish, right? To create the life that we generally want, or reduce the chances.
This is something, Benjamin, I struggle with a lot and only probably, realized recently that the choice of where I put my energy, and sometimes you push, and I'm sure I'm not, unique. Professional, executive, driving, and even in my personal life or my career life after that, pushing in different ways, looking for that next, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do with my life next? And creating energy focused laser beams, right? Powerful energy beams. And some of them for naught. And even though there are things I think intentionally I want to do, but you don't get there, and or you're fighting. It feels like you're pushing a rock up a hill and people are throwing stones at you. And then all of a sudden you do a different project and it feels like you're standing on the rock, rolling it down the hill. And how do you must see this when you talk to people and you point them in a slightly different direction after listening to them, and then things just get easier. Is this a real thing in life? I mean, like you said, where you focus your energy. How do
Hmm.
you help people determine the right channel?
Yeah. So I work with leaders, and generally they are leading teams of some kind.
Yeah.
And we have to define, like, what does self leadership mean? So what does it mean to lead yourself, and what does it mean to create an environment to lead others? And I'm starting with the definition, and I'll kind of get to your answer.
Okay.
Leadership, at least in how I would define it for how I work with clients, is crafting an environment that will bring out the strengths of the people that you
Mm-hmm.
work with and
Yeah.
adapt to the areas that they need to improve or help them improve in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not being directly responsible, but it's creating an environment to help them
Yes.
succeed.
Yeah.
Self-leadership is knowing what you stand for, what you believe in, who you want to be, and then believing in yourself enough to start crafting an environment to do the same for yourself.
Mm.
So oftentimes, like when sharing this idea of like throwing rocks and stones or
Yeah.
pushing up a boulder,
Yeah.
I actually envisioned someone with a shield, like this huge safety bubble around them where everything was bouncing off. Those are your values. That's your
Right.
confidence. And now you might not be headed in the right direction. That's because
Yes.
those
Yeah.
are your
Yeah.
goals.
Different. Okay.
But and so there's all these like different factors, but oftentimes people maybe don't have their values, so they're getting hit with, or don't have confidence, and so they're getting hit with the rocks, and so
Yeah.
that it's making them less resilient. They're more likely to
Yes.
give up. They're more likely to
Yes.
think they're not doing the right thing. But if you have the shield and you know what you stand for, or at least you believe in it enough, and it's coming from an internal source, not an external source, you're going to be
Yes.
more likely to be resilient, be able to face adversity. You're going to be able to keep taking the little steps forward, no matter how many people are trying to hold you back. But then also what you're going to do is say, hey, in this place right here, people are throwing stones at me. Why don't I just go over there to that other
Yes.
place? Why don't I change my
Yes.
friends, my social relationships, my work environment to get to a place where not only do you have a shield where you're resilient, but you're in a place that's like actually pushing you forwards. Maybe
Yeah.
like you're in a stream moving forwards because you've created an environment that helps you achieve your goals. And there's a lot of different factors. We're using imagery and stuff, but hopefully that explains a little bit of how we might even work with our clients, which is like, what do you
Yeah.
stand
Yeah.
for? What direction are you headed? Is this environment serving you or hindering you? And how do we make sure that any other problems that might come up, like maybe you come to a crossroads, you have the tools you need to make the decision to go right or to go left.
I love the framework that I would imagine this is what you put people through in coaching sessions, something similar, right? That framework kind of reminds me almost like when I go to the gym. I've been going to the gym on and off. I don't know how many, decades. And every time I go without a trainer, without a coach, I'm just, I just know I'm flailing. And even though I've been coached a lot and I know technique pretty good, still when I get back with a trainer and they're touching the right muscle and they're coaching you and they're like, step back to, oh, bend you're like, oh, I forgot all, like, it's amazing how important it is to have somebody who's outside your body, outside your physical movement, to coach you. And so I think the same for executive coaching, somebody outside your presence and your team and outside the company to kind of look at you and give you that guidance. Just so critical, even as experienced as we are.
Yeah, and no matter what in your life, we were just talking about this, like how even I need to take a step back sometimes
Yes.
to
Yeah.
check in where my energy's going. Monthly check-ins, quarterly check-ins. I
Yeah.
have a couple guys. We're not even coaches. We just get together every quarter to say, what do you work on? What are you happy about? What's
Yeah.
holding you back? What do you want to do next? Because I don't know how many people that do that, and unless you're working with a coach regularly, or you're an
Yes. Yeah.
executive team doing a strategy session with your leadership team. We need to do that for our lives, our relationships, our personal health. like you said, so go to the gym, and generally every 16 weeks we hit a plateau. Like no matter how hard you work, no matter what you're doing, if you don't
Yes.
change up your routine, if you don't look at, like, you're gonna have to change something, or maybe an injury happens and you need to adapt your routine, but you don't have an expert to help you do that. So just like with life, coaching has a place, self-reflection has a place. It's just a way for you to get a tune-up or maybe get a new
Yeah.
car. It depends on where you're at.
Most surprising client, like just the client you're still shaking your head at, good or bad.
Oh, and yeah, I was gonna say in a positive or
Yeah,
a negative way.
either way is okay because there's a lesson in there.
Well, uh, you work with enough people, you have a lot of success, but then every now and then you get like a big question mark.
Yeah.
And actually, the question marks make me screen my clients. Like generally, when I'm having a sales call, it's like, do I want to work with you?
Yeah.
Not
Okay.
and
Yes.
let's answer that question, because I had a client that started a program and then just disappeared. Poof. No idea what happened to him. And it's like it's the darnest thing. Messages, and you're just like, are you like are you on this earth? Like, do you exist anymore? And it's a, you commit. And I talked to other coaches, and this actually happens at a higher rate with some of the coaches that I know that
I
are like a higher volume, because I'm more
Yeah.
like one-on-one, high touch.
Okay.
And it's just this concept of, I'm going to invest all of this money into this
Yeah. Yeah.
idea to achieve this goal, and then something happens, whatever it could be. I'm afraid,
Yes.
I don't believe in myself, I made a
I
mistake, or
I
maybe
would
I get
think those are.
distracted, where you just disappear, and you don't have any you are so, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's embarrassment, maybe it's I don't care, whatever feeling it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't even want to close the loop.
Yeah. And leave the loop
It's
open
the
is
strangest thing.
awkward. That's kind of awkward. It's a tough choice.
We were talking about waiting tables and how that can help you understand what someone is like. 'Cause I worked
Yeah.
in his
Yeah.
hospitality, you worked in hospitality. I almost, if anyone's listening to this, I almost wish that they just for a day tried some like sales calls.
Yes.
And at the end of those sales calls, every single person's gonna say, you know what, I really want to do this, but I'll get back to you. And see what that's like to have people not follow through on what they say they're going to do, strangers or not. And you see this a lot too with trying to think where else you see this. Jobs, right? People trying to get new jobs, or recruiters will ghost you, or
Yes.
dating. Person you go on a date with doesn't
Right.
decide to text you and say, you know what, I decided to move on.
Yeah.
And I think they call it ghosting.
Yeah. Yeah. You get ghosted.
And there are some rules that I hold in my life because of things I've experienced. Right? Treat people with respect, especially from like waiting
Mm.
tables. Give someone the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
Uh, Closing loops is also something that I hold really dearly.
Interesting. Hmm. You've and you got to close it for yourself, right?
It's less about me. It's more about the person, because they're now living their whole
Yeah.
life with this memory in their
It,
mind.
it yeah. It's
That will
it'll
just
cut.
play on.
It'll come out. It'll come back up, right? Like, I never sent Benjamin that email. Um, and we all probably have a couple of those floating around. I got a couple emails somewhere buried down in there that I got to find and hit reply.
Don't do things for other people, do them for yourself. And how I
Hmm.
will work with clients, we talked a lot about values and goals. It's
Yeah.
like, what do you want your brand to be? What do you want to be known for? Are you proud of yourself? Are you waking up and questioning who you are based on actions that you've done in the past or doing now?
Right. Right.
And I don't want to bring this into it because I'm not a therapist, but I think you see a lot in programs where people do maybe move past habits or get closure. There's a lot of asking for forgiveness, because there are
Yes.
things that stick within us, that if there are memories that define us because we've acted in a way maybe we don't really want to be
Mm.
known as, but
Okay.
we define ourselves by those memories because we've never done anything about them.
Hmm. Interesting. Those are those are tough ones. The brand is pretty interesting. I think the brand right now is for me, it keeps coming up in a personal standpoint. You know, it used to be corporate brand was everything. And in my corporate life
Mhm.
for many years, I was subservient to the corporate brand. I was the brand, you know, or the corporate was my brand. Synonymous. There was no, it was all one big squishy mess. And I can see now where people really are taking this personal branding very serious. And I like it when it's tied to your values. Very interesting. Very powerful way
I'm a
to
little bit of a
do it.
values geek if you saw in my profile and
You're
my
yeah,
when I talk
you're more
about
on the value side.
yeah.
Tell us about that. What's the because isn't that become the brand? I mean, isn't that the foundation of the brand?
Hmm. It's the shield that
It's
I
the shield. Okay, it's the shield. Okay.
mentioned. It's the being able to walk into a room of strangers with completely conflicting viewpoints. Of course, you're in a safe place. No one's
Okay.
gonna attack you for your views.
Yeah.
It but you feel confident in sharing what you believe in.
Because it's
That's what true values
uh,
are. It's I'm walking into a room and I'm saying, this is who I am. And I don't care about being judged for it because it's important to
mm,
me and it's what I believe in. And I'm not talking about like political views and stuff like that. I'm talking about like I feel comfortable going to this might seem kind of silly, but I eat a certain way because I health is my number one value, mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical. And so I'll walk into a restaurant and be sometimes people are like, "Oh, I can't order that because people are going to judge me." I don't care. I hope
right.
I actually want people to hear me because I
T-
want people to know who I am. Or I wake up when we go on vacation and maybe I'm getting up at 4 a.m. to go work out before we have a flight at 6 because I care about being in the gym and feeling physically active. And I don't care if people define me as Ben, that health guy. That's totally fine. I'm okay with that because I believe in it. If I talk about, hugging a tree because I believe in the connectivity of nature and how we're all one
yes.
thing, I want people to see that. I want people to know that about me because that's who I am. That's what I mean by values.
Yeah, and I think it also showing your value, being who you are, right? Just being who you are also gives confidence to other people to be that person. And I think that's powerful when you're
Not
showing,
taking
you know,
the 7 p.m. or evening meeting at work, like you mentioned the corporate brand,
yeah,
because you want to be family oriented, or because you don't believe
yes,
in working to live. Instead, you want to, or you don't believe
yeah,
in
yeah,
living to work, you believe in working to live.
yeah,
And like feeling confident enough to set those boundaries, those are sourced from your values in terms of who you want to be and how you want to
yeah.
show up in the world.
And give other people the same courage. People who would normally maybe bet, they don't really want to be that. They want to be that person, but they don't have the. It's not a shield for them. How does it turn from a,
Mhm.
from
And
from a want from a want into the shield? Right. Very
yeah,
interesting.
and I'm kind of jumping around because this is just top of mind, but I moved to Austin, Texas about 4 years ago and had the opportunity to build a community again from scratch, which is one of the greatest
Hmm.
things about moving, hardest and greatest things about moving is that your past is left behind and
Yeah.
your future is for the taking.
Yes.
And it was the first time I could make friends and create community without a past. I didn't have to accidentally run into someone. I didn't need the pressure of someone reaching out to me to hang out with them.
Hmm.
No one knew who I was. I could be who I wanted to be. And that means also saying no to friendships. And I've said no to more people over the past 4 years than I probably have in my entire life
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I know who I want in my life.
So
And
cool.
that's also another aspect of values.
Well, it's perfect filter, right? It's perfect filter. Run everybody through the filter. See if they
Yeah,
make it through.
you've moved around and you said you're right now
Oh,
you
yeah,
connected with an old friend.
yeah.
I don't know how
It's
that
yeah.
relates, who you spend time with.
I was at a dinner party on last Saturday night, Friday night or Saturday night. Dinner party. Didn't know anybody in the room. Had a coffee with one person. Had a coffee with one person, and all super interesting, super crazy interesting people. But it's it's this throwing away everything and starting over does allow you to kind of, like you said, associate and do the things you want to do and hang out with the people you want to hang out with. Tell
Hmm.
us about your book. Got a new book
Yes.
out?
So book
That's
came
good.
out.
Let's talk about the book. Why and what and why should somebody read it?
Yeah, it's called Becoming Fearless: 65 Strategies to Journey from Self-Doubt to Self-Mastery. And it
Self-man.
is hopefully going to impact the world to reframe what fear is. So I wrote the book because I do what I do, and I wrote the book because I'm incredibly frustrated with people allowing others, and others being pressure, people,
Yeah.
fears, whatever it is, dictate the decisions they make in their life.
Mm,
Instead of saying, this is who I am, this is who I want to be, and I can craft an environment around myself because I believe
yes.
in myself to be able to do that, to have the work that I want, have the friends that I want, to have the life that I want. Ultimately, you feel aligned with yourself within your
Mm-hmm.
community and your environment. And so the book is hopefully going to do that. It's going to help people redefine fear as just information, and then use that information to serve their values and their goals to then create a life that they consider meaningful or fulfilling. It's written in a very simple format. There's a lot of things you can read to improve your life. I don't think you need to read words to take action. Sometimes it helps you become a
Yeah.
little bit more comfortable. The book is supposed to pose a question. It says,
Okay.
are you dealing with this thing? And then it says, this is how it's probably impacting you. This is
Okay.
something you can do about it. If this resonates with you right now, if this is something you want to change, do this one thing. If you do this one thing, you
Okay.
will create progress and become a little bit more fearless in this aspect of your life.
Oh, I love it. So there's 65 of these little
65
tidbits.
started. People ask me, like, why 65, Ben? And I go, that because that's the number that the book ended up with. So I had like
Yeah. How many did you start with?
150,
And, how does it?
160. Yeah, I had almost more than double. I had all these different fearless ideas pulled from 2 years of Fearless Fridays, this podcast that I have, and advice I've been giving to people. And then
Yes. Yeah.
there's other things that I felt was missing. And then it was just, okay, so what is directly related to fear, not just some skill or some strategy?
Okay.
And what is a complete amount of information to help you become fearless in every aspect
Okay.
of your personal life and every aspect of your professional life,
Mm.
to help you live for yourself, to become the leader of your own career and life, and to live fearlessly.
I love this. I love the format. Read it. Do you identify? Here's what it might look like in your life. Is this something you want to take charge of? Do this one thing.
I'm a man of fewer words. It's helped and hindered in many times of my life. I can tell you the number one
Yeah.
piece of feedback I've got in every job I've ever had has been, uh, be more charismatic, smile more, share more, and
Huh.
knowing when to turn that on is important, but also knowing how I prefer to communicate and who I want to be is also important. I had someone tell me the other day, because I was mentioning about how sometimes I need to be more social. I understand that. And they're like, Ben, but you say the things that matter. And the book tries to say the things that matter.
Love that. I think maybe anybody in corporate life, when you're a younger executive, like finding the space and the authority where you can speak with some authority or knowledge, hard to find those in the beginning. And then there's a point in your career when you're full of it. And then there's a point in your career when you should shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think as you get more senior, less is more when you're when you're at the round table and you're making decisions. You listen a lot, say less.
When you're a little younger, highlighting your wins is important. So you get
Yeah.
visibility.
Yes.
So who are you
Yeah.
communicating those to?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, maybe you don't have any wins yet. Well, then what you should be
Yes.
doing is asking questions and engaging and getting in front of the right
Yeah.
people to show your curiosity and passion,
Yeah.
and going after those little wins where you can help
Yeah.
out. But
And
generally,
smile and
I work,
share and run around and be,
yeah, I work with a lot of executive or emerging leaders too, and one of my number one pieces of advice, and anyone, if you're working somewhere right now or in your life and wondering how to
Mm.
be at a different level, maybe a higher leadership level, just all you have to do is pay attention. Pay attention to what the leaders do in the room that you respect, because sometimes there's some toxic leaders that you don't want to mimic.
Yeah, yeah. There's enough of, yeah. Find the ones you respect.
But same thing for personal development. If someone in your life is like a role model of just like calmness, or they seem to have their act
Mm.
together, watch them and then go ask them some questions. Kind of create those mentors for yourself. They don't even have to know that they're your mentor, but they can be.
What are you seeing? You've got probably clients, different age groups, and you mentioned different, emerging leaders, et cetera. Gen Z. What are you seeing between, what are they struggling with? Because it's a good cohort of, it's a good age right now. Some of them are, senior executives, and a lot probably in that middle pack. Struggling with anything different or same stuff?
Yeah, because I work mainly with self-leadership, people tend to gravitate towards me because
Mm,
they're struggling with a lack of clarity. They
yeah.
don't understand how to answer what my brand is. They don't know how to make it a reality. They don't believe in themselves enough. They have a lot of
Yes.
self-doubt,
Yeah.
inner
Yeah.
criticism, and they don't know how to. They're afraid, hence becoming fearless, afraid to take any action in their life to change it. In leadership, just overall, people are having a hard time leading in a remote world. That's just, I think, a headline right now.
Okay.
As well as understanding how to grow professionally in a remote world and how to balance
Yes.
their work and their life. And then the job market is kind of broken for everyone. I know you asked like specifically for the Gen leaders,
Yeah.
but right now navigating the job market is difficult because it's not operating by the same rules that it did 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so there's a lot of questions around, how do I stand out
Mm.
and how do I get a position at a new company that I'm interested in?
I think networking right now is so critical because the algorithms, it's this reverse thing. I'd almost, if I was advising somebody looking for a job, I'd say, print out your resume, print out your cover letters and mail them to people. Find a target
Have you
company.
have you seen that meme? I think he put him in a pizza box. So he sent
Yes.
pizza to the executives or the companies, yeah, and he had his resume in it.
Yeah. Genius.
Stand out. I was working with a client. We were in the final round interview for a company, and I was like, okay, pause. What's one thing that no one else in this, like that's currently in this interview process, is going to do? How do
Okay.
you stand out even more than anybody else? How do we get innovative and unique? How do we create an
Something
impact?
something relative to the job, something inside the
Hmm.
role, but something nobody would think of doing.
Hmm.
I think Benjamin, this is exactly it, right? Which is find I don't think you can send 500 resumes anymore. It's easy. The thing is, it's easy to send 500. You can just click, 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 copy, paste, click, click, click. You could send 500 CVs out tomorrow. Um, I think it is finding the one job you want with where your values line up, a place you want to work, and then being very strategic about going after a job. It's a different
Yeah,
market.
or building relationships in an industry. So you connect, like you
Yes.
said, with somebody.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
find out what they're struggling with. You surprise them with the solution or an opportunity. You build
Mm,
basically people. You build a network of people that think highly of you and want to help you. And that doesn't happen from just getting to know someone and asking questions. It can, but what is it that you can do
mm,
for that person? How can you go above them, go one step further? Doesn't even have to be that far. One
yeah.
step further than everyone else that's doing the same thing.
Heck, I'd even hire somebody that was showing a general interest in the work, right? In the career and the platform. If they're enthusiastic and they've got an interest and they're hanging around, eventually you probably give that person an opportunity. You don't have
Hmm.
to even solving the problem would be a bonus. I think just seeing somebody enthusiastic and generally interested. This remote stuff is hard. I think, this
Yeah.
talking about just, flourishing in humanity and making connections is very difficult online to really know how somebody's doing, feeling. You can't, I mean, we're energy, right? We judge, we receive a lot of information physically when we're in the room with people. I think our auras and everything, we kind of impart some knowledge about somebody, and not having that as a leader, very difficult to lead and very difficult to understand how someone's actually doing. Really hard. I really empathize with people right now.
It takes a higher level of process,
Yeah.
clearer expectations, a greater level of not micromanagement but oversight, and then
Yeah.
some every now and then in-person opportunities, so
Yeah.
connection, bring people
Yeah.
together. But we're not used to leading like that. Not used to requiring weekly one-on-ones. We're not used to requiring shared documents so you can check on progress to make sure that
Right.
things are happening. We're not used to having project check-ins. Like, these are best practices, but not all companies implement them. We're not used to having to force like team meetings or cross collaborative opportunities, or even just like team, and it's terrible to say, but and I say terrible because coffee chats, everyone kind of rolls their eyes, but we go into these opportunities thinking that we're forced into them, but really we have to understand the meaning behind them.
Yeah.
And so a leader has to explain like why we're doing certain things, and hopefully that creates some connection and creates role clarity. And then also maybe there's some conversation around job satisfaction. Like, how do you have fun working from home? How do you enjoy the fact that you have this freedom and autonomy, but then people don't because they're working all the time when they're sitting at their desk on a beautiful day, alone.
A lot. Yeah, this is the part. It's a lot. How do you get that job set? These are tough, right? How do you really feel about your job if you're alone in your room? I mean, this is just brutal. I think, well, and also too, we're seeing so many people are coming back, right? They're going to force, not going to force people coming. Like, sounds so bananas. Force people to actually go to the office.
It's real difficult to take something away from someone once you give it to them.
And I've seen some homework. I've seen some, we all know that it doesn't work, right? It's not nearly as effective working from home. There's definitely a lot to be said for physically getting together and doing things.
I think there's a balance. The evidence is going to be spun by whoever wants to show that there's higher productivity in certain places. I don't think it's as easy as everyone needs to be in or everyone needs to be home. I think there does need to be some level of interactivity in person. I don't know what cadence that is. Some jobs that are highly innovative, highly creative, highly artistic, sometimes need to be in a room consistently. But there's a lot of work that doesn't need that. You don't need that with.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, it's not a one rule fits all world.
Yeah, like you said, anymore, right? Things are very different. And what strategies do we need? I think I do feel like we're in this super shift of change because the post-COVID stuff is over. I think all of any COVID decision and anything that was normal before that is all gone. And I think this next kind of decade of work and life and work-life balance is going to be quite interesting. A lot of change. What's your advice? Maybe some closing thoughts. What's your advice for people going into this next kind of set of years? For you got your 40-year-old executives, your 45-year-old execs, hopefully your core group. You got people you can be with for the next 20 years. What's the advice? Because it's changing. And
I mean, we also have, just to kind of throw everyone into the mix, people entering the workforce that have never worked in person. We have people trying to had their first job and then they lost it because of COVID, maybe have been out of the market for a long time and don't know how to get another job.
Yes.
we have people that have gone to school for degrees that are now obsolete or becoming obsolete because of AI in the blink
A-
of
Absolutely crazy, right?
an eye.
Yeah.
It's unreal. Uh, there's a lot of things that are happening, and oof, I think this is one piece of advice that has been true forever, and I think it's going to be even truer in the
Mm,
future. And this also applies to the kids, and I say kids, but anyone that whenever there's a recession or any disruption in the economy, entrepreneurs get born, right? From the ashes rise the
yeah.
phoenix, and so a lot of innovation and disruption happens during that time. But I'm also seeing a lot of people in the job market think that the solution is starting their own business, and they've kind of said working for someone there's no good to that. And so my advice is first keep an open mind. There's no one right
Yeah.
way to work ever. I've gone in and out of companies. I have my own business. I have multiple income streams. I have investments. I have assets. You work because you're to live. How do you want to live? And then find something you want to learn, and that you're semi like you're it's novel enough where you're energized to go do
Yes.
it. And you can generally either change your perception or change the thing that you're working on for that. And then most importantly, try not to do it alone. And so relationships are the only currency in
Mm,
life that survives a global pandemic, uh, recessions, inflation, time. And so start building those relationships and nurturing them. It doesn't happen tomorrow, it happens over time, but really hold people in high regard. Find people that are one step above you,
yeah.
find people that are three steps above you, having a career that you're interested in, and invest in those people. And also, if someone asks you for advice, they're looking for a
Ooh,
mentor, so to speak, and you can give them 15 minutes. You don't know how you're going to
yeah.
change that person's life and what they're going to create in the world, and it would probably be very, very valuable for you to go spend that time with them.
Love it. Let's pimp the book one more time. You got to grab your book. Let's look at the book real quick. How to in Amazon, all the normal places.
All the good places. I mean, it's available in libraries and some bookstores, on
Okay.
Amazon online, and everywhere you can probably buy a book,
Yeah.
Spotify, Audible. I think there's some specific bookstores in Asia that are unique. So
Okay.
I think they should be available there. I have pretty expanded distribution.
Becoming Fearless, Dr. Benjamin Ritter. Awesome. Congratulations on the book. Book one.
Thank you, Ken.
Book number one.
We'll
Or book.
see. Right. I am very much about writing when I feel there's something that needs to be written.
Yeah.
And I tried to write this book so that it's evergreen, and that there
Yes.
might need to be some updates in the future when robots rule the world. But right now I think it's gonna be a foundation for a while.
Yeah, and you can spin. I mean, there's so much you can do with that. You got the 65, and you can slice and dice that up together and write another book of 10 of them, or like you said, whatever you feel be when it needs to be updated, when it adds value. I love that. I write what I feel needs to be written. Thanks very much, my friend. Great conversation. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you too, Ken. Hope you have
Yeah.
a beautiful day, and maybe I'll meet you on the other side of the world.
Yeah, when you make a trip over here, do a little bring the fearless becoming fearless over here, do a few episodes. I got a good friend here that runs a media company, and it's got a great studio called Vitcetera, and it's for overseas Vietnamese. And they're pretty. I gotta say, I'm one of the reasons I came back to Vietnam.
So I lost you. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Knock on wood, Ken. Or knock knock.